Here is the number nobody tells you. The Department of Energy measured that 76% of sunlight hitting a standard double-pane window enters your home as heat. Your interior blinds block may be a tenth of that. A $15 exterior mesh stops most of that before it reaches the glass, dropping room temperature by up to 22 degrees. It is standard across Europe. So why has almost no one in America heard of it? Stand next to a sunlit window on a summer afternoon. The glass feels hot to the touch, the air inside the room grows heavy, and the air conditioner never seems to get ahead. What most people never realize is that the window itself is quietly working against them. Standard double-pane glass, the type found in millions of homes, lets through about 3/4 of the sunlight that strikes it. That is not a minor leak, it is a flood. The technical term is solar heat gain coefficient, SHGC. For a typical clear double-pane window, SHGC averages around 0.76. This means that 76% of the sun's energy hitting the glass ends up as heat inside the house. It is not just visible light. Shortwave solar radiation passes straight through and then gets trapped as infrared heat, raising the temperature of floors, furniture, and air. The effect is strongest in rooms with big, unshaded windows facing south or west. Even with the thermostat set low, the incoming heat keeps the air conditioner running longer and harder. Homeowners may blame their insulation or their old cooling system, but the real culprit is often the window itself, acting like a one-way door for solar energy. This is not a rare problem. Department of Energy data confirms that for most clear, untreated double-pane windows, the majority of solar heat is admitted right into the living space. The result is higher energy bills and persistent hotspots, conditions that interior shades and blinds barely dent. The scale of this heat inflow is invisible until you measure it, but once the numbers are on the table, it is hard to ignore just how much is slipping through the glass. A homeowner, sweating through another July afternoon, pulls the blind shut and waits for relief. The room stays bright enough to read, but the heat lingers. This is the promise and the letdown of interior blinds. Despite their popularity, laboratory tests show that standard interior blinds or shades cut only 10 to 15% of incoming solar heat. The rest pours through, turning the space into a slow-cooking oven. Researchers at national laboratories have measured this effect with precision. In controlled test cells, incoming sunlight streams through the glass, strikes the closed blinds, and is absorbed as heat inside the room, not outside. The air just behind the blinds warms up, rising in temperature and circulating around the edges, bypassing the barrier entirely. The result is that blinds lower visible glare, but barely dent the invisible heat load. Homeowners often double down, layering curtains or blackout shades, but the numbers do not improve much. The physics is simple. Once sunlight passes through the glass, any barrier on the inside can only absorb or reflect heat that is already inside the building envelope. That is why, even with every blind drawn tight, the air conditioning keeps running, and the floor remains hot to the touch. The measured 10 to 15% reduction is not a rounding error. It is a built-in limitation. For anyone hoping to keep a room cool without running the air conditioning non-stop, relying on interior blinds is like bailing out a boat with a teacup. The real solution, as the evidence will show, lies in stopping the heat before it ever makes it past the glass. Sunlight travels to Earth as shortwave radiation. When it strikes a window, most of that energy passes straight through the glass, about 76% for a typical clear double-pane unit. The glass itself barely slows it down. Once inside, though, the story changes. The shortwave sunlight hits floors, furniture, and walls, and those surfaces re-emit the energy as long-wave infrared heat. Here is the catch. Long-wave infrared cannot escape back out through the glass as easily. The window acts like a one-way valve, emitting energy but trapping it once it becomes heat. This is the greenhouse effect in miniature, played out in every living room and office with sun-facing glass. Dr. Elaine Matthews, a building physics researcher, puts it this way. The window is transparent to the sun's energy coming in, but nearly opaque to the heat trying to get out. That is why the room heats up so fast. Now consider what happens when a physical barrier is placed outside the glass. A dense mesh, mounted just a few inches away, intercepts the sun's rays before they ever reach the window. According to lab measurements, a standard exterior solar screen blocks about 85% of the incident solar energy. The mesh absorbs and reflects sunlight outside the building envelope, so the trapped heat cycle never starts. The small fraction that does pass through is far less than what a bare window admits. This outside first approach is fundamentally different from interior blinds, where interior shades only deal with heat that is already inside. An exterior mesh prevents most of the problem before it begins. The numbers are clear. Intercepting sunlight before it hits the glass is the only way to break the cycle of heat gain that drives up cooling costs and leaves rooms sweltering. The next question is how these numbers play out in side-by-side, real-world measurements. A controlled field test in Trappes, France, set out to answer a simple question. Just how much difference does the position of a solar screen make? 3 identical windows, 3 distinct treatments, and a summer sun beating down. The first window was left bare. By late afternoon, the indoor thermometer read 97 degrees Fahrenheit, the air thick, surfaces radiating heat, and no relief in sight. Next, researchers installed an interior mesh screen, the kind sold at most hardware stores. The peak temperature inside dropped, but only to 90 degrees. The room still felt stifling. Then came the final setup, a matching mesh screen mounted outside the glass. The result was immediate and dramatic. The highest indoor reading held at just 75 degrees Fahrenheit, a full 22 degrees cooler than the unshaded room, and 15 degrees below the interior screen case. The test was not a one-off. Sensors logged data minute by minute, confirming that the effect held steady throughout the hottest part of the day. The only variable that changed was the position of the screen. The window, the sun, and the weather all stayed constant. For the homeowner, the difference was unmistakable. With the exterior screen in place, the air felt comfortable, the floor stayed cool, and the urge to crank the air conditioner vanished. No elaborate retrofit, no high-tech coatings, just a $15 mesh clipped to the outside of the frame. These numbers, 97, 90, and 75 degrees Fahrenheit, cut through theory and speculation. They show in plain terms that blocking sunlight before it crosses the glass can mean the difference between a room that is barely livable and one that is genuinely cool. The Trappes experiment stands as clear, measurable proof. The position of a simple mesh screen can decide whether a home bakes or breathes easy. Exterior shading isn't just a niche experiment, it's the default in much of the world. In Germany, Austria, Switzerland, and across the Mediterranean, exterior roller shutters and mesh screens are standard features on homes and apartments, written directly into building codes. In Morocco, Italy, and southern France, exterior shutters are closed each morning to keep interiors cool through the hottest hours. Designers point to these traditions as proof that blocking sunlight before it hits the glass is a globally recognized best practice, not a fringe idea. United States laboratory results back this up. At Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, controlled tests on matched homes found that exterior fabric shades delivered an average 10% reduction in daily cooling energy use compared to interior blinds. A Department of Energy study of 50 cities showed even larger impacts. Cooling energy savings ranged from 25% in hot, dry climates to over 50% in some temperate zones. For American homeowners, these numbers confirm that exterior screens aren't just theoretically better. They are proven to work, both in the lab and across a range of real-world climates. Walk into any home improvement store, and the window covering aisle is packed with blinds, shades, and films, all designed for the inside of the glass. The reason is simple. Interior products carry higher profit margins and are easier to market, so manufacturers and retailers have every incentive to keep the focus indoors. A basic roll of exterior-grade solar mesh costs about $15 per window, while a replacement window can run $800 or more. For the industry, the economics are clear. For homeowners, the math is even simpler. A $15 mesh, a $10 frame kit, and a few barrel clips are all it takes to build a screen that blocks most of the sun before it ever touches the glass. No contractor needed. The only real trick is knowing which windows matter most. West-facing panes take the brunt of late-day sun, driving up temperatures and energy bills. Snap a solar screen onto those windows, and the payoff is immediate. Cooler rooms, lower air conditioning runtime, and a solution that sidesteps the entire showroom logic. Right now, 76% of solar heat still flows unchecked through millions of US windows. Field tests show that intercepting sunlight before it reaches the glass cuts room temperatures and cooling bills. No hype, just physics. For most people, a roll of solar screen that costs $15 and an afternoon of work on a west-facing window is all it takes. What's stopping you?